This is foundational, not fluffy, not mystical for the sake of it. This is for the men who genuinely wants clarity, obedience, and alignment. Look, if you've ever prayed, ask God for direction, and then sat there just wondering, was that God or was that just my own thoughts? Look, you're not alone, right? Like most men want God's will, but they want it clear, specific, and without confusion. Like you don't want vibes. You don't want guesses. You want direction, right? Direction you can actually move on, like move, I go. So today I want to show you like how to hear God's voice more clearly and know what he's asking of you, right? Without like overthinking it or over spiritualizing it or freezing in indecision because God is not silent. He's usually just crowded. Look, there was a season in my life where I was desperate for clarity, big decisions, business pressure, family responsibility, calling, timing. I prayed, I journaled, I asked for signs, I waited. Nothing, right? Nothing felt clear. What made it worse was that quiet fear of like, what if I mess this up, right? What if I miss God's will? What if I'm moving ahead of Him or lagging behind? But one day, something hit me hard. God wasn't withholding direction. I was asking for certainty instead of relationship. Look, I wanted instructions without intimacy, right? Outcomes without obedience, clarity without surrender. And once I shifted how I listen, not trying to hear God on top of my life, but making space within my life, his voice became quieter but clearer, not louder, not dramatic, but clear. So I got three things for you, okay? First one, God's voice is most clear when your life is ordered. Look, one of the biggest reasons men struggle to hear God is because their inner world is loud. Stress, fear, urgency, ego, pressure, desire, comparison. God's voice rarely competes with chaos, right? Scripture says like God speaks in a still small voice, not because he is he is weak, but because stillness requires humility. Here's the uncomfortable truth, okay? If your life is disordered, your discernment will be clouded. Order doesn't mean perfection, it means alignment. Like, so ask yourself this, right? Am I sleeping? Am I training my body? Am I numbing stress instead of processing it? Am I rushing every decision? Am I asking God but still trying to control the outcome? When your nervous system is constantly activated, it's almost impossible to discern spiritually, right? God's voice often comes when your body is regulated, when your heart is honest, when your ego is quiet. And then guess what? Clarity follows order. Second one, God's voice aligns with character, not convenience. Here's a filter that will save you years of confusion, okay? God's voice will never contradict his character. If that's what you're hearing, inflate your ego, feed your fear, avoid responsibility, shortcut integrity, damage your family, pulls you away from love, patience, humility, and courage, guess what? Not God. God's direction usually stretches you, humbles you, requires trust, strengthens your character, deepens your love, increases responsibility, not escape. This is why many men don't like what they hear because God doesn't always tell you what's easiest. He tells you what's forming. So ask yourself this, okay? Does this direction makes me more loving, more patient, more faithful, more honest, more grounded? If you said yes, you're likely on the right path. God is far more concerned with who you are becoming than how fast you get there. That's what we want, right? How fast do I get there? Okay, third one. Clarity comes through movement, not waiting. This is where a lot of men get stuck, right? They are waiting for the lightning bolt, the guarantee, the feeling of total peace before moving. But most of the time, God gives clarity after obedience, not before it. Look, scripture is full of these patterns, right? Take the step, then the path will appear. Move, then clarity comes. God rarely gives you the full map. He gives you the next right step. If you already know the next honest conversation, the next boundary, the next act of obedience, the next responsibility you're avoiding, you don't need more prayer. You need action. Because obedience sharpens hearing. And as you move, God adjusts your direction. A still man hears very little. A moving man hears guidance. Yes? Look, if you want to hear God's voice more clearly, remember this: order your life, filter by character, move in obedience. God is not trying to confuse you, He's forming you. And when your life slows down enough to listen, your heart humbles enough to receive. And if your feet move enough to trust, guess what? His voice becomes clearer. I know that was a lot. Look, one of the biggest things that blocks hearing God clearly is unresolved emotional pressure in your body. So in the next video, we're covering what's the best way to manage stress physically when I feel it all in my body. So click the video right there, the little square, and I'll see you inside. You got this. Peace out.